Your Excellency, Dr. Abdullah bin Hamad Al-Attiyah, Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Georgetown University in Qatar and the Liwan Student Club and the initiative of our students, Haya Al-Thani and Muhammad Al-Kuwari, I would like to welcome His Excellency Abdullah bin Hamad Al-Attiyah to our university in the series of events planned to commemorate the Qatar National Day. His Excellency has more than 40 years of experience in the energy industry and has served in a variety of senior leadership positions within the government of Qatar and represented Qatar in international forums. He is currently the chairman of the non-profit Abdullah bin Hamad Al-Attiyah International Foundation for Energy and Sustainable Development. He has previously served as Deputy Prime Minister, Chief of the Amiri Diwan, Minister of Energy and Industry for Qatar, and Managing Director of Qatar Petroleum. In 2006, Dr. Al-Attiyah was elected as Chairman of the United Nations Commission on Sustainable Development and was President of the 18th session of the United Nations Conference on Climate Change, COP18, hosted by Qatar in 2012. He has also served as the President of the Administrative Monitoring Transparency Commission of the State of Qatar. His Excellency Al-Attiyah received numerous honors and medals throughout his distinguished career, both in Qatar and from the Netherlands, Japan, France, and Lebanon. He also received 2 honorary doctoral degrees from Texas A&M University and from the University of Tor Vergata in Italy. As you can see from this brief overview, and the CV is very long. I can only be brief here because we want to listen to His Excellency. We are fortunate to have with us one of the pillars of Qatar's society and economy, and one most capable of addressing today's topic. Your Excellency, we thank you for joining us today and for taking the time to share your experience with our community. Moderating today's event is Professor Gerd Noneman, Georgetown University's former dean and the leading authority in the field of Gulf studies. سعادة الدكتور عبد الله بن حمد العطية، أصحاب السعادة، الضيوف المحترمين، الطلاب الأعزاء، السيدات والسادة. نيابة عن جامعة جورجتاون في قطر ونادي الليوان الطلابي، يشرفني أن أرحب بسعادة الدكتور عبد الله بن حمد العطية في جامعتنا في هذه السلسلة من الفعاليات المخصصة للاحتفال بالعيد الوطني لدولة قطر. يتمتع سعادة الدكتور بخبرة عريضة تمتد لأكثر من 40 عاماً في قطاع الطاقة، وقد تقلد العديد من المناصب القيادية العليا في حكومة دولة قطر، ومثل الدولة في العديد من المحافل الدولية. وهو حالياً رئيس مؤسسة عبد الله بن حمد العطية الدولية للطاقة والتنمية المستدامة، وقد شغل سابقاً مناصب نائب رئيس مجلس الوزراء ورئيس الديوان الأميري ووزير الطاقة والصناعة في دولة قطر ورئيس مجلس الإدارة والمدير التنفيذي لمؤسسة قطر للبترول. وفي العام 2006 انتخب سعادته رئيساً للجنة الأمم المتحدة للتنمية المستدامة، كما تولى رئاسة الدورة 18 لمؤتمر الأمم المتحدة للتغيرات المناخية المعروف اختصاراً باسم كوب 18 الذي استضافته العاصمة القطرية الدوحة في عام 2012. كما تولى سعادته رئاسة هيئة الرقابة الإدارية والشفافية في دولة قطر. وقد حصل الدكتور العطية على العديد من الأوسمة والجوائز التقديرية خلال حياته المهنية المتميزة في داخل دولة قطر وأيضا في هولندا واليابان وفرنسا ولبنان. كما منح درجة الدكتوراه الفخرية من جامعة تكساس A&M ودرجة الدكتوراه الفخرية من جامعة تروفرغاتا الإيطالية. كما ترون من استعراضنا السريع لسيرة حياته العملية والعلمية، نحن محظوظون بوجوده معنا كأحد أعمدة المجتمع القطري والخبراء المتميزين في اقتصاد دولة قطر، وهو من أفضل الشخصيات القادرة على تناول موضوع حديثنا اليوم. سعادة الدكتور، نشكرك على انضمامك إلينا اليوم وعلى إتاحة الوقت لتشاركنا بعضا من خبراتك. I would like now to invite His Excellency and Dr. Noneman to the podium. Thank you.
So welcome on my own and Georgetown's behalf. And I'd want to start by, not by introducing His Excellency, but simply by expressing my personal pleasure as well, being here again together. For several reasons. One is that in my many years of looking at development in the Gulf, I think I must have been following His Excellency's career and role in the development of Qatar and beyond, and OPEC and so on, for something like 30 years. Not quite as long as his own career is. I'm a little bit younger, but nevertheless, he's been a constant feature in what I've been looking at. And to be here has brought the additional pleasure of actually engaging with him. His Excellency is also a good friend of Georgetown. In my years here at Georgetown, he's been a friend. He's also a parent of a Georgetown student. He's a Hoya parent. But he's been engaged with us and with our students throughout. So it's a double pleasure, really. That was just a personal thank you.
Thank you very much.
Expression of appreciation. Now, the subject of the lecture combines two things, really. The underlying theme is Qatar's trajectory, a developmental trajectory over the years, and a trajectory that's been remarkable by any standards, the speed of development, the ambition of development, but also particularly in the current context of the boycott against Qatar. Because it's clearly one of the main things that it's been the kind of developmental achievement that's enabled Qatar to be far more resilient under these conditions of boycott than certainly people like Mohammed bin Salman and Mohammed bin Zayed had ever expected. So it's definitely worth looking at this phenomenon, the phenomenal development of Qatar, what inspired it, the ambitions that went with it, the challenges, and the ways in which it was achieved, both in its own right and because it helps us to understand how Qatar can be so resilient under the current pressures. And as Dean Dalal explained, there's no better person. It's hard to think of a better person to guide us through some of that experience, because he was so central to much of it, in energy first and foremost, but also beyond. So I hope that we can simply have a discussion about some of your experience. And one of the things in this is clearly Qatar's development has not just been about what's often seen as white elephants and so on, because it has led to serious, significant internationally recognized achievements and resilience. So it's sustainable. It appears to be sustainable, and in certain respects on the way to sustainability, and in other respects it has already achieved that sustainability. It strikes me that, and it struck many people outside, that from your role in energy, oil and gas, which is not for the broader public often associated with discussions about sustainable development, you have taken on a role in lots of ways that does speak to this question of sustainability. Your own foundation has sustainable development in its headline, in its title. You were famously chair of the COP18 events here in Doha, which achieved a success beyond expectations at the time. Everybody thought it wasn't going to get anywhere until, particularly under your chairmanship, you made it happen. So I just wonder what, from your perspective, with your background, this concept of sustainable development actually means. How you see that.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me again to talk about what is happening in our area, the challenge of Qatar, the blockade. Many things that happen, is very, very confused, and we still searching what's happening. We know now, we understand why, what behind this blockade, who came, unfortunately, so surprising to all us. Sustainability, it means with any country would like to draw a map road to the future. Mm-hmm. Must introduce their sustainability development plan. Because today we in Qatar, as even we are a small country, but we have a lot of challenge. the challenge of the future. How to build a country can face, this challenge even beyond oil and gas. As you know you know that oil and gas is a depleted resource. It's not renewable. When we talk if we calculate our reserves from gas, oil, from hydrocarbon industries, we can take this as with reserve to over 100 years, 100, 150 years. For us, it's a long, and for you too, it's a long. But for generations, it's short. So we always ask ourselves, what is beyond oil and gas? Do you think if a scenario we don't do nothing, so I am sure that the next generations, after this years, they will wake up with dark. So they have nothing to do, the resource, the power, everything will stop. So we say that we now maximizing our profit. We also concentrated in how to develop our huge gas reserve and other relatively production related to energy. So to do must do with this money, so is to build the state, is to create sustainable development, education, airlines, infrastructures, nanotechnology, also how to, for innovation, research, can be what they call the brainstorm. They can be that the generation to be more educated. Generation that you see that all Qataris, young generation, will have highest education. So by education also it creates sustainability development with the nation. The nation will be more educated, and then they can challenge the future. So this is what the meaning of sustainability, because I remember in 2006 when I've been elected in the Sustainable Development Conference of the United Nations, I was facing over 190 countries and NGOs attending the United Nations, discussing about the future. Everyone is very concerned about the future. The whole world is facing a lot of problems. The rich and the poor. The equalization in the world does not exist. I always say there are many people die from eating more food, and there are many people dying because shortage of food. So this is the way that if you see many people that dying because they eat too much, they become diabetic, heart disease, we see a lot of overweight, and the other side you will see the disaster. And also in our world now, there are 2 billion people. They have 2 billion, 1/3 of the whole universe have no access to energy. So the world is full of problems. We can see wars everywhere, small wars in every part of the world, because also it's a big business. Because the industrial countries, they have a big production from arms, but they cannot fight each other, so they transfer this war to the others. And this is the theory was created by Metternich, who was the prime minister of the Empire of Austria and Hungary back in the 19th century. He said, if we face recession, we create wars. Wars will create business. A lot of arms deals. So they said, you see what happened in Africa a few years ago? I advise you to see a very good movie called Blood Diamond. Can't tell you, this is true story, will tell you how all this industrial create the small wars. Now we have a world is full of problems. Others take benefit from the others and from their natural resource. So sustainability is very important for us to build a civilized country, to concentrate on education, health, infrastructures, telecommunication, nanotechnology, research, so that we can take us beyond the oil and gas.
In your particular role, one of your roles has been not just in COP18, but also in OPEC, your role in OPEC. You've often been engaged in situations and negotiations dealing with lots of different interests, very diverse interests, difficult to reconcile. But throughout, you seem to have been able somehow to manage this. Do you have would you like to reflect on that experience of how to negotiate these sorts of situations and how to reconcile or perhaps somehow change the interests perception?
Yeah, when I joined the Ministry of Finance and Petroleum, that time is the title, 1972, I was lucky to find myself, become a member of the Qatar delegation in the same year. So I spent with OPEC more than 40 years. 20 years as a delegate in the back seat, 20 years in the front seat. So I had the equalization 20-20, 20 in the back seat. Then I moved from third seat to second seat until but it was very good. It was not quick movement, but it was slow. But for me, it was very concentrated, because it made me that I am not just came suddenly from up very quick, because this time, if anyone will be final, to take a short and then find himself in the top business, then he will fail because he will have no experience how to deal with all. In the back seat, I spent 20 years in OPEC with Qatar delegation. I was watching the whole things. I was watching, the oil price, very low, oil shock in 1973, oil price, reached in 1981 more than $40. In the real term now is about $150. Then I saw the falling of the oil price from $40 to $6, $7. So then after 15 years, the average of 1985 to 2000, the average oil price was $17 in nominal. So then after 2000, we saw the oil price again, what they call the second oil shock, reach $120. After almost more than 10 years, we saw the oil price go down even less than $40. Now we see the price of oil going now slowly, now Brent about 62. So we see that all the way and the challenge. I saw the whole picture, I live with it. We see, in the bad days, the good days. Sometimes we have a big smile, sometimes we start to cry. But this is the business, this is the cycle. They call it seller day, when the seller start to smile, when the price of oil high, and the buyers start to cry. Then switch the game. The seller start to cry, and the buyers start to have a big smile. But all we always say in our, expressions, that oil can be sick, can be weak, but never die. And we have to, all the countries, they have to, even the producer, live with it. And they have to manage their budget. They have to cut the fat. They have to, how to manage their budget smartly in the bad days or even in the good days. In the good days, don't spend the whole money for nothing. In the bad days, you save the money in the bad day for the bad days and how to manage it. In the 70s, we make a lot of mistakes because it was the first shock oil, so we were not managed it in that time. But the second oil shock, at least we learn a lot of lessons, how to manage it, because you need, the first one take you by shock. That you thought that oil price never go down at all. They always in that time talking about oil price will continue very high forever. But in that time, we don't understand the cycle of the economy in the world. So we believe that OPEC, it was created back in 1960. Why? Because at the time, oil was controlled completely by the IOC, International Oil Company. Upstream, downstream, they fix the oil price, they control all the oil price, they own it as a concession. So they give few dollars for the ownership. So the ownership who have the reserve, they only receive peanuts. But the IOC, or International Oil Company, they control the whole show. Even they met many times, they fix the price, all of them. They also control production, and they control the refinery and the whole downstream. So they control the whole thing. So the owners start, because every time the IOC, to give, because now the time only to give you, just a few money for the owners. Mm-hmm. So also this, they're, dramatically, to lower the crude oil and to, raise the products. So in the owners only they receive oil from for the price of the oil, not the products. Mm-hmm. So 5 countries, Venezuela, Iran, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq, they met and decided to create OPEC to challenge the IOC and to put pressure only to raise 2 cents here, 5 cents here, 10 cents here. This is the coup of the founding of OPEC. When the oil shock in 1973 happened, this is encouraged the owners to control their production. So even in Qatar in 1975 or 1970, they decided to take over the production from Shell and from IBC. And the government will own 100% of the production. This is what we call it the rise of the NOC, National Oil Company. Start, to all the countries to create their own national oil company. So after 1973, the IOC lost many production, and transferred to the producer or to the ownership. So this is now the frame is changed, and it start long war between IOC and ONC. Because IOC, they have the technology, they have the experience, they have the research. ONC that time only they have the production, but they don't have the technology, the finance, and the marketing. So the time in how to challenge the ONC take years to develop their skill. Mm-hmm. Even Qatar, when they take over the 2 companies, they ask them to be a technical service company. So Shell start IBC, continue Qatar, but as a technical service company, but not the owner, because the time we have the capability to run the show. And it takes years to build the human resource, to build the experience. When I became a minister in 1992, our challenge at that time, Qatar, the oil was below $10. Our total production only not exceed only 400,000 barrels a day. And we face a lot of problems. The government face a lot of financial problems. How to finance their budget. Because at the time, the oil price take from 1985 for 15 years in the weak point. So the government start, because the time in most of the oil producers, whatever, even the Gulf or Nigeria or Venezuela or many, many parts of the time, they were so happy when the oil price was high. They spent a lot of money for what they said, white elephant projects and for social costs and others, but they never thought about the future. They thought that the oil price would continue as very high. So in 1985, they wake up in a nightmare. The oil price dropped very dramatically. Why the oil price dropped very dramatically? There is a story. I was there. In 1981, when the price of oil was so high, the North, they discovered a lot of oil in the North Field Sea in Europe. But the cost before was deep water and very costly. So they need a high oil price so they can produce it. So when the oil, it's the same story now. You see, I always believe history always come back. Now, the same thing, the shale oil is one of the effects of the oil price very low now. So in 1980, start the oil, the North Sea produced a lot of oil. So, and they're dumping, millions of barrels in the market. So then the market become facing a big glut over production. So the oil price, because always in the theory of the demand and supply. So that time the supply was more the demand. So the oil price go down very dramatically. So then the price of oil dropped from $40 to $26. So we met in OPEC. At that time I was not minister, but I was a delegate, senior delegate. In Qatar, Abdullah Salat, the guy who sit there, he was one, I call him the dinosaur of them. So he was, the first Qatari, the second Qatari after he graduated in 1962 from high school, where I am maybe in the junior high school or even elementary school. So, and he went to United States as the second Qatari student. The Qatar sent him to study in the United States, so he studied geologist in Texas. So he became 68, and he joined the Ministry of Oil also, and he became later on the national representative of OPEC and the governor of Qatar and all. So it's a long story. So at the time, we were there. OPEC have extraordinary meeting when the price of oil was $26. So we met, so Sheikh Zaki Yamani, he introduced a new theory. He said, we have to, give the North oil producers very hard lessons. How? He said, we open the production maximum. So the oil price will go more down, and then they will come crying. And then we can give our conditions. But unfortunately, they never show up. We start to cry. They never show up. We wait months and months. So they come crying in Vienna as the headquarters of OPEC, but never they show. What we start to cry, you see, in the North, in the Europe, the all production of oil not, exceed 3% of the GDP. Where we are, more than 90%. So they are to compensate their oil company by tax, by some, so they can let them to produce. So only it's a 3% of their GDP. Different than OPEC members who independence very heavily, almost 90% in oil. So this is the way that the Yamani theory was failed. And this is why then King Fahd, asked him to leave. Because he convinced King Fahd that it can't be work. And we will let the producers from the North Sea come and kneel in their knee in OPEC, begging for help. But as I say that, I remember his words. I was there when he said, they will come crying. So I was young, that time, not young, but I 15 years in OPEC, so it's a long time, but 14 years or so, or 13 years in OPEC. So, but I was confused. Are they? Maybe. Why not? But I learn a lot of things, that you must not to believe, in the way that you have to calculate your, steps. I learn a lot of studies. I learn you should not be optimistic all the time. You have to be very careful all the time. Mm-hmm. You have to understand how to negotiate it. Because the time, when I became a minister, I negotiated many, many projects, So the way, yes, OPEC rule was a very important rule since, they created OPEC to challenge the IOC. And even beyond that, when OPEC become, owns and operate their own oil, how then they, even in 1985, OPEC introduced in that year the quota, what they call the quota system, how to cut the production from the members to balance the market. In that time, OPEC was controlled almost 65% from the market. Not now, OPEC only share in the market dropped to 30%. So the way that, in that time, OPEC have the upper hand in how to set quota. It helped in many ways in not even to, not in the beginning to increase oil, but to stop the reduction of the price.
So in fact, let's turn our gaze to the future on that subject. Now that OPEC has only got about 30%, and it's no longer the swing producer, what do you think is the future for OPEC?
Well, I think now we see many oil producers, they are non-OPEC, but they are also produce oil. They want a good price for oil, as Russia, as Norway, Mexico, others. So now they come to work with OPEC. The last cut of production in OPEC, it was by support by Russia and others. So they are now, it used to be back in the 90s, we invite, I chaired OPEC several times. I was chairman for OPEC many times, So the time in OPEC, we decided to invite non-OPEC. So yeah, they came, they gave us a good speech, sympathize, and they leave with no commitment. So they want us to do the dirty business. At that time, we continue because we have the majority of the share of the market. But now, because we lost the majority of the, for shale oil, for other producers who produce more oil, but they are not member of OPEC. So, but now they need us, and we need them. They suffer very much because of the oil price. Most of this new oil comes from a very difficult production, as shale oil or deep water oil. The easy oil is over. The world discovered the whole easy oil. Now all the production, the new production, comes from a very difficult production. It's deep water or shale oil. So it's a very need a high price to sustainability. So OPEC still, most of their oil is easy oil. So now, because the common interests come, so they come finally to OPEC with, supporting how to create a quota. So they succeed to control, at least the balance of the oil market. And then we can see, because the demand was weak for the last few years, especially from India and China, because they entered to a big recession. Now we see back again that India and China, they came to the market recently with a strong demand. So this is why the oil price go up to almost $64 the barrel. But unfortunately, the shale oil came to produce more oil, so the oil price go down to 62 now. So this is the problem. Now, traditionally, oil was fighting other alternatives, fighting coal, nuclear, and other. Now, oil against oil. So I was telling, some of my lectures, before I say this is a strange war, oil against oil. So oil break oil. So this is the way that is not to challenge the other, alternative, But I believe that, the oil price, and this is a cycle, and this is now how they cooperate with others, I believe that this is at least give a space to, to avoid the whole collapse. Yeah. Because the time when the oil price was dropped in 1940, 2040, all the expectation to go below even $30, So it was, all the oil producers was, shaking.
So let's move on from oil to gas, because of course gas, in which you played a critical role here in Qatar, is LNG in particular, is really at the heart of Qatar's development, and certainly it's a major component, and a lot of the revenues were derived from that were then plowed into the rest of development. There's also downstream, but it was to an extent, I know you said earlier, you need to be cautious sometimes, not over-optimistic, but it was to an extent a gamble at the time. A lot of people at the time in the specialist media and consultants were very careful about this whole gamble to get into gas in such a big way and did massive investment and debts, but it worked. Could you say something about that experience?
I mean, when I said I'm not optimistic, not optimistic about the oil price, we have to very carefully. But the challenge, I always believe that we have to take our challenge. You see, Qatar is the smallest oil producers in the OPEC. All our producers was 600,000 barrel in the maximum of the 80s. Then we dropped to 450,000. When I became minister in 1992, oil production only 450,000 barrel. That's all. The oil price was very low. The government faced a big financial problems, how to finance the budget. So the time even the government told me, don't come to us asking funds. Go and do it whatever your way. We don't have money to finance you, or even to give you an equity. So this is the big challenge, the time. And then we look to the gas. 1997, Shell discovered the biggest gas, non-associated gas field in the whole world. Over 900 TCF of proven reserve. But in the time, it was shock for Shell and for the government. Is gas, not oil. No one at that time searching for gas. Because at that time, gas has no value. Only all companies searching for oil. So Shell, walk out from the field, and they say to the government, sorry, take it back to you. We are not interested in that time. What we should do with the gas. In that time, LNG was only 2 countries in Asia who use LNG, Japan and Korea. But in the time, they imported from very close countries to them, Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei. So they are not interesting, to In that time, the oil price in 1968, when start, Japan, and to import LNG, the price of the oil and the gas was not competitive, to import it from long destination. So the time, even how to build ships, LNG ships, was very costly, very small, only not exceed 50,000 cubic meter or less. And so the scale of the transportation is very small. So it was not even, we have no chance to market our gas. But in 1992, in the 90s, we felt that start the market searching for other resource, or what they call security of supply, or some productions in Asia start to drop because of the shortage of gas. So the time in our challenge in how to build our LNG, where the price of oil was very low, and in Asia, all LNG is related to oil. So when the oil price very low, the LNG is very low. When the price of oil high, they are become. So it's related to each other. So they call it the formula related to oil. So the time we spend a lot of meetings, spend from the morning. Sometimes we work 7 days at 12 o'clock in the night, straightforward to to do what we should do. How to can convince the first customers. So the time, they create Qatar Gas company in the beginning, and to concentrate how we can bring the first customers. So the time we concentrate in Japan, because if Japan come to ours, the ours will follow Japan. Japan in that time, and still the leader of the LNG, consumers in the world. So we traveled to Japan even before me. There are teams travel to Japan, travel to other countries, to see how we can to manage it. But the time, we were not missing, how the plan. When we start, to work, when I become minister, I visit Japan many times, talk with the Japanese. Then, we find out that there is a company called Chubu Electric Company. It starts to be interesting in the Qatari gas. Even many analysts, they advise in Japan, Chubu Electric not to go to Qatar because the Gulf is not stable. You remember we have what they call the Gulf War, when Iran and Iraq for 8 years, then Iraq invaded Kuwait, they call it the Gulf War II. So and the Japanese very sensitive about security of supply. But after many discussions, and I can write a book, how to negotiate it with Japanese, how to negotiate it with Koreans, how to negotiate it with Chinese or Indian or other, because every country has his tactic of negotiation. Different mental, different how to talk to them, how their mentality. So I'm planning to write my book in the future, nearest future, inshallah, and to talk about the negotiation. It's an art. I learn a lot of. In the time, we can't see after years, I understand the Japanese. Now, when we arrived with the Japanese, agreement, and finally the Japanese take a long time. They are not just come to you and they drop their word and they say we sign tomorrow. No way. In the beginning, I thought they give you the Japanese. They are very, is very interesting. They never give you emotional. They are no, you're yes. They control, they smile. In the beginning, I thought when they smile to me, they are agreed. But they are not agreed. Later on, I understand, don't trust Japanese when he smiles to you. He's a very polite man, very honored, When he signed, he respects his contract, whatever the cost. Other countries, they sign, and when the price go up, they come to crying to you. They want reduction. Japanese will never talk about it. They respect their obligation. I love to work with the Japanese, really. So then we signed the first contract. It's a short, long story, but I will make short it, not now. Read my book when I... after, we agreed, we signed the contract, 6 million tons for 25 years. Then we start to build Ras Laffan port. In that time, before me, Qatar Petroleum was thinking, to build the terminal, the export terminal in Said, but only for 6 million tons. Cannot exceed the production, cannot expand, only because the capacity of Said, this is the way. So at that time, I was in charge of the office, the director office of the Minister of Oil and Petroleum. So they invite us. His Highness the Father Emir was the heir apparent. He was chaired the committee about the future of the gas industry. So they invite us in his office to discuss, what the future, how we can see it. So the Emir, look, that's I think 1988 almost. Then the Emir say, they give him presentation, and this technical guys from QB, and they recommended very strongly that they will build it in Said, but the capacity will not exceed 6 million, and you cannot extend it because there is no space. So the Emir, His Highness the Emir Father, looked very seriously, and he said, what do you meaning that we cannot extend? This is not, I reject, this theory. We have to build, a place that can, can be extended and can be accommodated more consumptions. Because he said, I don't, to see that with the huge gas, that only we will export 6 million and we stop. You see, His Highness the Emir Father, he was reading the future very well. Really, without him and without his comment, they will plan to build it in Said. So at that time, I was not minister too, but I was the chief of staff of the Minister of Finance and Petroleum. So the time, I was sitting, listening to how they will plan. So His Highness the Emir rejected it completely and said, no, we will build a new place. So he then decided to build it in Ras Laffan area and to build a piece of art of port that can accommodate huge quantity, not only LNG, but even all kind of hydrocarbon, products. Mm-hmm. So then he invite us, to go with him to see the area. Who choose it? He said, I want to build it here. Some of them, they say not happy. Oh, it's far away. Not far away, but there is no infrastructure. They need to build, they need some cost, high cost, He said the high cost can offset it in the production. But don't push me the corner and you say only, say only 6 million tons. So then when I became a minister in 1992, they already signed a contract with an Italian company called Condotti to build the port. So they built the port, and they built it at the right time. They built it in in how to expand in the future. So without the visionary of His Highness, the Father of Amir, we will never reach 77 million tons. We always only 6 million tons. So I think His Highness the Father Emir changed the whole map and the whole road. I believe, I always, when after I become a minister, I said, you know, without the visionary of His Highness the Emir, we will never be the biggest LNG producer in the world. So I always, many times, don't trust your expertise all the time. Just see the visionary of the future. So then Ras Laffan became the biggest LNG port in the world. We start with 6 million tons, yes, but we end up with 77 million tons. And we become the biggest LNG producers in the world by far. And then we not just stop for LNG, because when we sign with Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Thailand, India, China, and now Pakistan, and now Bangladesh. So we can see many consumers in Asia come to join our club. Then we sign the other part in Europe, Spain, Belgium, France, Poland, Italy, and Britain. Especially Britain, we are supply them with almost 30% of their gas consumptions. So now Qatar, and also we sold many spot cargoes to Latin America, to Brazil, to Mexico, to Chile, to Argentina, and others. Then we decided to build QB and their partner ExxonMobil to build the biggest LNG terminal in USA to export LNG from Qatar to USA. We call it the Golden Pass in Texas. Golden Pass is a pass, is the sea coming, channel, so it's Louisiana from the other side and Texas from the other side. So we built, and we call it Golden Pass Terminal, to accommodate almost 15 to 20 million tons of LNG. In that time, America was facing a big shortage of gas, and the gas price was, reached $17, $15 for each million BTU. So it was very good economy, model, So we built the project. When we just finish it, it took us 36 months. When we just finished it, the shale gas came. So the gas price dropped from America from $15, $14 to $33. So even not cover transportation costs from Qatari gas. So we stopped. We never sent one cargo. I visited this terminal several times. It's a very beautiful terminal, big ones, nice ones, but unfortunately, the shale gas has changed the whole story of gas in America. So what we should do with it? We cannot just leave it to be a part of the touristic places in Texas. So people say, oh, see, the beautiful LNG terminal who never work. Then we met with ExxonMobil, we discussed, and then we bring this idea, why not to convert it to LNG exported from USA? And this is what we agreed now with ExxonMobil. So ExxonMobil and QB applied for the Department of Energy in the United States. We got now the whole license. We got the whole permits to convert it from importer to exporter. We hopefully that by 2023, if everything goes smoothly, and I think it will, that we will start the production. And then we will export LNG from United States. Our market will be located to Latin America and Europe. So then, and now also the good news that we will increase the production of gas from the North Sea, and also we plan to increase our production from LNG from 77 million tons to 100 million tons. And from United States, we believe that we can produce 10 to 15 million tons. We start with the first 5, and then the second phase 5, and then 5. So also to at least 15 million tons. So Qatar will be growing very fast in the LNG. Qatar will, now Qatar is the most competitive producers of LNG in the world. We are very low cost producers. All our big projects now in Qatar is written off. The sand cost is 0. So we are now, no one can compete us. Also, when we start, in that time we create the biggest Qatar gas transportation company in the world. Now we have different ships, bigger ships. We own, it's a public company. Now we have the production and we have the ships. It used to be the biggest, later on the biggest gas tanker was 155,000 cubic meters. We built Qatar in Korea shipyards, the biggest LNG tankers in the world, 2 types. One we call it Q-Flex, 220,000 cubic meters. And the second one is called Q-Max, is 265,000. No one still until today built the same type. So now we are control, the ships, control the production. We are the most flexible producers in the world. We can send all our ships to the end of the world. So we have the final destination. We can go to any customers. And also when Japan faced, the tsunami, you remember a few years ago, and they forced to close all their nuclear power stations, about 34 stations. Japan produced almost 30% from nuclear, so they face a lot of shortage. The only country have the capability to send to them thousands of ships of LNG is Qatar. So the way that now today Qatar, also this is, it's a long story, because in less than 10 years, Qatar became at that time the biggest LNG producers. Also, we jump to another technology, because also we want to have a different varieties in our, what they call it, gas basket. We built also the biggest condensate refinery in the world. We extract a lot of ethane from the gas. We built the biggest ethylene cracker in the world. Also, we find some helium in our gas. So we extract the helium. Now Qatar are the biggest helium exporter in the world and the second producers after USA. Also, at that time, they introduced a very interesting technology. It's called the GTL, gas to liquid. You take dry gas, convert it to diesel, to naphtha, lube oil, jet fuel, and others. And the way that the products produced from gas is 0 emission. So it has a big premium because it's the most clean energy in the world. So also, we enter to this industry. Today, we built the first project with Sasol of South Africa because they have the experience and the technology. We produced 33,000 barrels a day. The cost at that time, it was $2 billion. There were many experts, they have a certain uncertainty. They warned me, don't do it, but I do it. I take the risk. Because they say it's a new technology, it's high risk. It's not a new technology, it's an old technology, By the time, how they discovered this technology, it's a story that during the Second War, Germany has no resource of diesel. So the Allies blocked supply, all supply to Germany. So how Hitler, he will run his tanks. So he asked the German scientists to have a solution. So that time Germany produced a lot, and still a lot of coal, some coal. So then the Germans introduced a new technology called Top Fisher technology. Convert coal to gas to diesel. It is expensive, but it's a solution for his tanks. After the falling of the German and they lost the war, some German scientists, they so frightened to take them to Nuremberg, court. So they escaped to South Africa during the Apartheid Day. So the South Africa, the Apartheid Day protect them, and they start to use them. So also South Africa, they have the same problem. The United Nations introduced a solution not to boycott South Africa and not banned any countries to supply them with products. So also the German scientists, they introduced to the South Africa the Top Fisher technology. Also, South Africa produced a lot of coal, so coal to diesel, diesel to coal to gas to diesel, and they built, a plant in Secundo. I visited this plant. So the Sasol came to me and they say, we would like now to introduce direct gas to products. So I was really very fascinated with this technology. It will bring more products to Qatar, high quality. And in my belief that this is the way of how diversification our, portfolio. So I agreed. So some experts say, don't do it. It's very risky. I said, okay, but I will take the risk. Because in our business, if you don't take the risk, you will never be innovated, So we take the risk. I take it. I signed the contract. And we call it the Oryx GTL, produced 33,000 barrels a day. The total cost almost $2 billion. When I start to produce, I was so lucky because my heart was beating because they say my experts, they say, you will create a big problems for us. It will not work. And I take the risk. So it's a very, very emotional for me. And I was always ask myself, if I failed, what will be happen? It will be my end of career. Because then I have to, admit it that I take the wrong direction. But I was so lucky. And I believe I'm a lucky man. Not every time, but I don't know. But I believe I have luck. Because sometimes I take very hard decisions. Others thought that, and sometimes they thought that it will not work, but it worked. Not because I am, but it will work, so I am lucky. So in this project, only 2 years, and it was payback. The third year, we made about $500 net profit.
Million.
Net. So I was so happy. I had a big smile. I was teasing them. I said to them, I am happy not to listen to you. So they never react, because then Shell came. Shell have also good technology, and they built one plant in Malaysia, produced 12,000 barrels, and it was the biggest one. Mm-hmm. So now, after Oryx, we become the biggest one, 30,000, and then we become the biggest GTL producer in the world. But Shell came with a big, big project to build the biggest plant ever built in the hydrocarbon history. To build, almost, total about 200,000 thousand barrels a day from oil products. The cost is almost $18 billion. It's very costly project. $18 billion. This is the first project ever in all hydrocarbon story cost in one shot, with $18 billion. So then I take the risk. Also start some experts, this is very dangerous, this is very big, this is so costly, but I said, okay, but we try it in Oryx, it worked. Sorry, again, I will never hear to you. So we signed with Shell. We call it the Beryl GTL. It was a huge project. I remember, in the plateau of the construction, there were 55,000 laborers. Or 70,000, sorry. 70,000 labor working in this project at the same time. We built with Shell the biggest village in Ras Laffan, the most beautiful village for laborers. It's a big city. It has everything because the laborers differently came from all over the world. Nepalese, Indian, Bangladesh, Filipino, all over the world. So we built a multinational cosmopolitan city that we built for them, golf course, cinemas by all languages, food and catering by all, because Pakistani and Indian, they can, or the Filipino, they all different, dishes and so. And when it finished, we made a big celebration. His Highness the Emir, the father was the Emir, he attended the project and the inauguration. And I'm also lucky. The payback less than 4 years. And we make a lot of money. We and Shell, So this is the way that, in our risk, so now you see, Qatar also expand in fertilizers, we expand in petrochemicals, methanol, MTB, EDC, VCM, soda caustic, helium, aluminium. We built a big aluminium smelter. In the total portfolio, we export to 95 countries in the world. Now we are, the way that how to create one. In the time you see how the change, when I was a minister in 92, total production 450,000 barrels. When I left in the end of 2010, after 20 years almost as a minister, our equivalent barrel almost more than 4 million barrels. So put Qatar one of the leaders in the energy world. It was a long, a lot of change, very dramatically change. And then we are lucky also with most of our projects finished. The oil price was very high, so we are also lucky. The time is, support me. And thanks to the situation from oil price, when I was just appointed minister, it was $7. When I left, it was over $100, and even reached $120. So we benefit really in the high oil price. Chemicals was fertilizers, helium, all was products, GTL, ethyl, LNG was in the highest price. So we benefit from a lot of revenue that can help the government to build even Qatar Foundation, even now in Georgetown, even in the whole education. And this is, I always believe, invest in the human more value than to invest in cement. Because the way to invest in the human is to invest in the future, more than to invest in cement, or just to build a big white elephant, complex or so, with no value. But to invest in education, This is the way, and to bring the best universities in the world, to give Qataris, the more choice to have a very good education, very solid education, help them in the future to be the most educated nation in the world. So I think, we are, the time when Sheikh Musa was thinking to bring all these best universities, and she was discussed with me. I said at that time, I was not sure that the American university will come because they never even went out of their state. How about to bring them overseas? So I said, I said to myself, Sheikh Musa is dreaming. But also she was right, I was wrong. So, but this is the way that, we can, my assessment is different, so she went, she gave a lot of efforts. I remember I joined her visiting, Georgetown, and I was visiting with her college station in Texas A&M. So at the time, I joined her visit, she was convinced, and she has a charisma to convince these guys in American universities who never even built outside of their border, of their own state. So you will not find Georgetown in other states, only you will find it in DC. You will not find Texas A&M except in Texas, So, or UT or Texas University or others, So, but the dream is to become true. And we become the capital of education in the world. So the way that even that we can accommodate a lot of forces, in our human resource, Believe me, we benefit a lot from Texas A&M, really in our energy sectors, because it's a good college in engineering, very specialized in energy. This is a Texas. Texas is an oil state, So they, very similarity to us, And then we moved, the way that now can see that the output of our quality. Now we have also Georgetown, produce high quality people. They join many parts of the world, in Qatar, even, and many foreign students also join a very good school. We always welcome them. Qatar is, we believe the right country to live, safe. We have the lowest crime rate, the high growth of economy, and we welcome all. And as His Highness Sheikh Tamim in his speech recently in the United Nations, he said, I praise the native and, the foreigners who live in Qatar, we thank them very much. We believe they are also part of our society. Now, we are a cosmopolitan country. We host more than 130 nationalities from all over the world. And we thank them because we need them as they need us. Because you cannot just build your own, whatever the country. If you go to the United States, and for instance, I visited a lot of RD for oil companies as ExxonMobil, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, and others, Every time when I go there, RD, the center, I find all scientists from all nationalities. I can find Arabs, Chinese, Pakistanis, Indians, from all the world. Even if you go to American universities, you will find very good varieties, professors from all over the world. This is the brainstorm. This is why America becomes succeed. They take the whole praise from the whole world and give them the chance, better chance than even their own country. So this is the way how to see that you cannot just say is my nationality, but you can say how we can work and cooperate with others.
Your Excellency, you couldn't have summed it up better, bringing it back to our original, the start of our discussion about sustainability and the things that are necessary, the role of universities like this one, like Texas A&M, like all our colleagues. And I think particularly poignant, the point you end on, the comparison with the US and other really successful economies and research and development environments, that cosmopolitan collaboration being crucial for the building of human resources.
Yes.
So thank you again many times over.
Yeah, but before the conclusion, we never mentioned the blockade,
We started with a blockade.
Yeah, but not in the way that, I believe that, just I would like to talk a few minutes about
Absolutely.
We believe, and we always ask ourselves what is happening. Why our neighbors, our close neighbors. Because if you see the, human or the corporation, all the Arab Peninsula are the same tribes, the same people, same, even all of us, we have relatives in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Emirates, Kuwait, and Oman. We all came from the same area. Back 1,000 years, we are immigrants from other part to the other parts, so we are if you see all the families, they have branches. Even sometimes you have one Bahraini, he has nationality Bahraini, his brother, he has Qatari nationality or vis-a-vis in Saudi Arabia. So because this is common, that and mixed marriage and so, the same language, same culture, same. But we always, when Ramadan, the first week of Ramadan at 4 o'clock in the morning, when we wake up, we were shocked. They introduced blockade, the 3 countries plus Egypt, I don't know why they brought Egypt, but we accept, okay, fine, but we don't understand it, why Egypt. So, and why they don't ask the Gulf, State Council to meet, because there are 6 countries, including us, where Oman and Kuwait, even Oman and Kuwait wake up with a big surprising. The 3 countries only they are breaking the GCC, Secretariat, who are not respect their, agreement, in the founder agreement of the GCC in 1981. So we were first confused, when they're introduced first the hacker of a speech of His Highness the Emir. They introduce a speech, His Highness the Emir never say it. And they hacker our Qatar news agency, and they put the speech in their system, and they say, you see, Qatar news agency published the speech. But we say, but all Qataris and non-Qataris, we have over 100 embassies in Qatar. I asked many European and other ambassadors, did you hear the speech? They said, no. This is very strange. So even we deny next day the speech, but they never admit it. Then we asked the FBI and the British intelligence to come and to help us. So they come and they made a lot of investigation. The Washington Post just last week published a big article saying they have a report from the FBI approved that the hacker came from Abu Dhabi. And we wait for them to say sorry. But they never say it. They sign it, and now they never talk about the speech. Then they got lost. What they should do? They introduce another accusations, financing the terrorists. Then we ask ourselves how we finance terrorists and whom are they? And then they introduce the whole the blockade, transportation, airlines, export, trade. They kick our students from the university. Even some patients in some hospital there, they kick them. Even they separate their families Even in the beginning, there are Qataris, women married from Bahrain or Saudi Arabia or Emirates. They told the woman, leave the country, but don't take your children. So they are a fanatic. They are a psychopath, in their way of how, even in the wars in the modern days, you will not find that, how they treat, citizen or others, as a criminal or so. So then, but I am wondering, they cut supply us, because we were heavily dependent in Jabal Ali for export and transit, also from other Saudi Arabia, from, the Emirates, we heavily independent, all our private sector, they have storage, or they, retransit from Dubai as a free zone, to the Qatar, So they cut supplies of chocolate, of food, medicines, and so on. But I'm wondering, and I have an interview, even last week I was in New York giving a speech in Columbia University, in the Energy Center there. And they asked me the same question about the blockade. And I said, I'm very, very wondering. They're accusing us that we are financing, terrorists. But they cut all supply to us. Okay, fine. But Abu Dhabi, they cut everything except our gas. How come? Because we supply Abu Dhabi a huge quantity through the Dolphin project, subsea pipeline, 2 billion cubic feet a day, a meter a day. But I ask myself, and even I have interview with Russia Today, with Al Jazeera and others, I ask, is it very confused how a country accusing us by financing, terrorists, they cut our airlines and others, trade, but they never cut, they never, stop our contract, supply them of gas. And we received hundreds of millions of dollars every month from them. How they agreed that we take their money and finance the terrorists? We have no answer for that. This is a hypocrites. This is a show that there is no, evidence, but because our gas feed 30% of their power sector there. So they close their eyes in the gas. They are not. So it's not, our gas is not part of the terrorists. So they join our gas. So they never talk about it. They never even mention it. So it's very strange, when you accuse us that we are terrorists, but you are still okay, cut chocolate, cut, Pepsi, soft drink, some rice, some so this is no way that will, the only way that they will try to show the world how we are a terrorist. Okay, we don't want to drink Pepsi in the same time. Okay, chocolate is not good for our health. Okay, that the way that how we can. But yes, they create in the same 3 weeks, some uncertainty because unfortunately we were very heavily independent in their, boards and other way. But now I always say Qatar, we learn a lot of lessons. Thanks to them, really, because now we will never come as we used to be. We will never, we trust them in our business. Now, today, the government wake up. We learn from the lessons. Now we start to build our infrastructures, Hamad Port, Hamad International Airport, Qatar Airways. Now they built the logistic. And now we are how to build our, we used to be for the, for years that we are very heavily independent in Al-Mara'i milk company. And I was very laughing sometimes when I checked the Saudi Arabia social media and the Twitter, oh, Qatari will die because they don't receive our milk. So the way that, You know, they are you know, only they believe they are the only dairy in the world. But now we are building our domestic, you know, to expand. Sorry, we have a dairy, but now to expand our industrial. Now we are open the market for everyone. Now we have see a lot of varieties, you know, from different. Now, why? Then you ask yourself why they want to invade us. Because in their planning to invade us, for sure. Because when we start, you know, saying we would love to talk, discuss, please approve to us, give us evidence. Even their foreign ministers, Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed, Al-Jubair and others, and, you know, they travel to the whole world trying to persuade them that we are terrorists. So even in Europe, in Asia, you know, even in Japan, in Korea, China, India, Pakistan, all over the, you know, Asian and European, they ask one question: where your evidence? We want to see your evidence. You have no evidence. So I remember, you know, when Al-Jubair visited Germany, and they have press conference with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Germany. The Foreign Minister of Germany was tough with Al-Jubair and said, I want evidence. Al-Jubair start, you know, cannot even express, cannot even talk. Was very embarrassed for him because he had no evidence. So the German and Europeans and others, they say, but we don't, you want us to tell us what we should cut, you know, diplomatic and with Qatar, and you give you permission to invade Qatar just because you say that they are a terrorist. So they are becoming, and then they introduce a list. They call it black list. They put a lot of Qatari names that they are tourists. We find out some of them, they died 4 years ago or 5 years ago. So they are very stupidly, then even they don't know that these guys are dying for years. But believe me, in my assessment, in my discussions, I try search for the truth, why they do it, and for what. We were good friends. We are very good relationship. We have, you know, we fight with them in Yemen. We fight, you know, with them with every, you know. But it's very strange that, you know, and I'd like, you know, to thank him also when they ask our army to leave in Najran. We are very happy for that, you know. It's not our war. They just, you know, we were, you know, in the interest of the GCC, that's all. But we are not never send our armies to fight outside. Only once when we send them to fight in Kuwait, to liberate Kuwait. And that's, you know, that's what we believe, you know. But you ask yourself why they want to invade Qatar. Because when the Germans and the Europeans ask them, give us your condition, what do you want from Qatar? So they introduced 13 conditions. It's very strange, you know. First, they say, close Al Jazeera. It's very interesting, you know. You see, 4 countries, they're frightened from TV station. What this country who frightened from one TV station? If they are, really they have, you know, should not exist, these countries. To a TV station, make for them a headache. So now, in the satellite, we have received 2,000 or more, you know, TV stations, and also news as CNN, BBC, Fox News, Al Jazeera, Sky News, they also, Al-Arabiya. So they have their own TV, also news. Why Al Jazeera? Why you are frightened from Al Jazeera? Once I was talking with one Saudi official, he said, complain about Al Jazeera. I told him, my friend, you have the remote control. Move it, whatever you like. So if you don't like Al Jazeera, you have the remote control. We have the technology. Even you don't walk to the TV from where? Move from Al Jazeera. Why you watch Al Jazeera if you don't like it? So I know they have psychological problems. They love to watch Al Jazeera. And then they are become sadism. They hate themselves, but they love to watch Al Jazeera. And I say, this is your problem. I advise you to go to see a psychiatrist because they call it Al Jazeera syndrome. It's a very dangerous, disease. So then the second, they say Qatar must give compensation, financial compensation to them. For what? Egypt, for instance, they say we want $100 billion. For what? They say they believe that Qatar, behind the collapse of the Egyptian bond, and then Qatar also behind the falling of their tourist industry. Now, my friend, is really, we are seeing is a very dangerous, also one of their psychiatrists, believe everything what happened in the whole world, even if there is earthquake in the moon, they will tell you Qatar and Turkey behind it. When you see any disaster, even natural disaster, they will say Qatar and Turkey behind it. They have the problem, their own problem, the way to believe, how to try to believe every time, even in Barcelona, you remember a few months ago, this one guy hit people in the street. This is a criminal, to hit innocent people, no one accepted. You know what Al-Attiyah said? That they have their own information from Barcelona, but they don't mention their version. That Qatar was financing this guy to hit the guys from the street. So it's really the way that they would try to blame us for everything. Even when they have a flood, they say Qatar behind it. Even, the way that, but in the end, I don't want to take you long, but in the conclusion, I would like, to ask myself, and I ask myself many times, why they put cross Al Jazeera? Even the Guardian, I was so interested in the Guardian when they say, how about if China asked the British to close the BBC? The way that the Europeans and the Americans and the free world, they don't believe that you ask them to close TV station. Mm-hmm. They will say, as what Trump now, can he close the CNN? Because he hates CNN? No way, because the free country, they respect the free speech. The First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution in Philadelphia Convention, the First Amendment, free speech. Now, I believe, personally, and with an evidence, that I was so deep to search. Why? Because, they have a plan. Abu Dhabi bought Blackwater, changed the name to Academy, moved them to Liwan, the west of Abu Dhabi. More than 5,000 missionaries. Today, even in the Daily Mail today, it was published an article. They said now, Saudi Arabia, in the Ritz-Carlton, it's a 5-star, I stayed several times there. It's a 5-star prison. But a hotel changed it to prison. I don't understand what Marriott, who owned the Ritz-Carlton, was their reaction when they see to manage a prison, not a hotel, no more. They say that they now, the Abu Dhabi or the Blackwater or Academia, they already sent in experts in how to torture these prisoners. Read, please go and read it, because I cannot now, no time to tell you about the whole article, but to show you how they are. In the same time, they plan, but they want the green light from America. So they don't receive the black, the green light. Even they tried, to bribe Mr. Trump with the big contracts, with a lot of hundreds of billions of dollars. But they don't understand America running by the system, not running by the individuals. President go and come, but the system is how to run a country. And then I believe that, in the conclude, that they want to control our gas in the first, because Saudi Arabia facing a lot of gas problems and shortage. Saudi Arabia use millions of oil, barrels to produce power. King Saud University, they produced a study last year saying if Saudi Arabia could to continue to do, and the increasing of power 11% a year, by 2030, Saudi Arabia will never export 1 barrel of oil. Also, Emirates, they face a big shortage of gas, Bahrain and Egypt. Qatar has the biggest gas reserve in the world. I am big assuring that they devilization, or they make Qatar as a devil, and they create all this aspect, not just because terrorists or Al Jazeera or so, they know that this is the way that never been exist, but they want, and then they give this 13 condition, and they say only Qatar has 10 days to accept it with no discussions. That a way that this is the next, remind me by Hitler when he wanted to invade Poland, he introduced similarity conditions to the Polish, and they said only you have 1 week to accept it. So they don't accept it, so they invade him. He invaded Poland after, and then they start the Second War. So I'm sure that they want to solve their own problems financially, and in the account of Qatar. Qatar, because the small country, so they thought that Qatar is easy, because they cannot fight Iran, they cannot fight Israel. Now even Iran, even Israel, even Israel now has become, they forget about it. Even when Prince Mohammed bin Salman, with his interview in the NBC, he said he will move the war inside of Tehran. Then he moved it to Qatar. So the way that, but I will love to say to you all Qataris, our economy very strong. We are growing very fast. If you hear what I'm saying about LNG, we will increase our LNG by very high dramatically. Our economy is very strong. They try to attack our economy, our currency. They try to create uncertainty, because when you create rumors, unfortunately, some people, they believe it and they hurry to take their money to transfer it outside. And this is what they want. So I'm giving big W, big warrant. Believe me, your economy are the best than them. Our growing are the best than them. They cannot grow, but we are grow. So the way that when I explain to you how we will increase our LNG to 100 million tons, how we will be a big producer of LNG in the United States. Now we are engaged with ExxonMobil in searching for gas in Cyprus together. We are in Total in Congo in oil production. We are in Shell with a big project now already in petrochemicals. We are doing very good. Now in the power sector, we are invest, Qatar QEWC invest huge money in Oman, 2,000 megawatt. We bought a big assets or power station in Jordan. from AS, the American power company. Now we are expanding our business and our investment outside of Qatar. We are growing very fast. Don't be worried. Don't to listen to them. They have the problems. Saudi Arabia, they spent for the last 3 years in Yemen $170 billion. Their daily cost over $50 to $70 million a day. The war in Yemen, North Yemen, never any in 5,000 years, never any country invade them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is a real
Thank you very much.
And I'd like to say on my piece,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed.
This is just a token of our.
Thank you very much.